shot a professor in his home in Brooklyn.
You did better than me.
We are? Okay. All right. We're ready?
Ready?
They got
Everybody
arrested
ready?
in Providence and they put up a charge against him back in '80. Dismissed. Not
Okay.
very good. The felony.
You guys ready? We're going to get started. The gavel. There you go. All right. It is December 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m. and we're going to call the Budget Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Christy Wood.
Oh, it's okay. Beth Varney.
Facilitary.
Greg Fuller.
Harold Shirtliff.
An approval of the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Written. Second.
I would,
Yeah.
okay, I just want to make one change. If we can swap and do the review of the school budget before we do the review of the warrant articles.
Approve that.
Need a motion? All
Oh,
set?
yeah. it's-
Okay,
Change.
with that change? Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, do we have any old business? All right, new business. Guess we start with the school budget.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, how are you?
Regarding our presentation of the school budget for all the budget committee. Generally, I'm scheduled to meet with you this one time. And I'd like to come to the public hearing that you hold in January. There have been, there's going to be 1 year and a half. Sorry about that. Thank you. I won't start over. So we've handled it different ways depending on what you're looking for. I take notes. If there are questions I can't answer that I have to check with other staff on during the meeting this evening, I'll send you a memo because you will have meetings between now and then, I assume, even if I'm not here to present, so I can get information to you. But also by attending your public hearing, I can follow up on questions then as well. So I never like the idea, I've talked to the school board about this all the time. I don't like to present something and then not have an additional follow-up opportunity before action's required. It just feels too rushed, especially with the stakes that we're dealing with and the amounts of money involved in municipal finance and school funding. So I'm prepared to follow up in whatever way is going to work for you. I don't like to read memos and presentations to people, but again, I'm here tonight with you for the first time, so I'll just kind of summarize what's here in my cover memo, two-sided, today's date, my name on the front. So last year we came to you with a budget that was increasing 1.86%, understanding that the voters of Alton have been looking for restraint in all budgets. That's how I've interpreted their actions the last couple of years. And we've continued to budget the same way and attempt to practice conservatism. Nevertheless, we're here with a school board approved and recommended budget that reflects an increase of 3.84%. And the main driver behind that, unfortunately, is healthcare costs, and that probably doesn't shock anybody. We offer 2 health plans in the schools. One is called the School Care Yellow 2.0 plan. It's going up 21% for next year, and the other one is it's a high deductible plan, so there's an out-of-pocket limit for individuals, 2 persons, or families in the plan that can be very high. A family out-of-pocket maximum is $10,000 in the orange plan. We fund 5,000 of that in a health savings account, but the premiums are much lower. So it ends up being a good deal for the district if employees feel like they can plan their care, and the whole purpose of the high deductible plan is to get consumers to take a more active role in being wise about their healthcare decisions. But that plan's going up 31%. So even though it's our lowest premium plan, that's a huge increase for us. So unfortunately, we've made some cuts in this budget that will not harm student services. The first, and these are numbered, 3 numbers on this memo, there are actually 3 positions eliminated in the Alton Central School budget in this proposal. But you still see a net increase because of healthcare and some other increases. There are also some increases in special ed that we can get to as we go through the budget document. Again, these cuts in the budget will not harm student services. We have fewer students than we used to. And I think it's a mistake when schools just keep filling the same positions year after year as they're facing fewer students. It just doesn't make sense, but you have to also be careful about where you can make these cuts. So we've been careful. We've been planning some of this for a few years, or at least the last 2 years. So we have some cuts there. We've been sharing central office services, as I think you all know at this point, now for, oh boy, I think we're going into year 5. I think this might be year 5 of shared services. So 1 superintendent instead of 3 different superintendents for our schools, 1 business administrator. We share information technology staff. And in this budget, there's a reduction in the area of facilities. Buildings and grounds is the function in the budget because we're going to have 1 director of facilities next year for all 3 of our schools. That's not unusual at all for a school system, whether it's a district or a little bit different from a district the way we are with Alton, Barnstead, and Prospect Mountain. It's not unusual at all. So it's not, I think it's important for the public to understand that we're not cutting for the sake of cutting. These are responsible reductions. These are things that work in other school systems that should work here without any problem. So there are some reductions there. And then finally, a similar idea, when we started pulling these 3 schools together, there was a lot of redundancy. And one of those areas was that each school had a full-time social worker. So you have a full-time social worker to serve 475 or 450 kids in Barnstead, a full-time social worker serving 425 kids in Alton, and 1 at the high school. So we, in this budget for the high school, because when we share something, we have to put it in that budget because it's the budget that's shared. We have 2 different ways, and I'm sorry it's complicated. We have 2 different ways that we can share costs across the system. So in social work, we'll have 2 employees instead of 3. So if you look at certain functions, you'll see a reduction, and if you ask why is there a reduction here, I'll say, okay, that's where the social work positions are. Trying to give this adequate time while also moving along. In the high school, the total operating budget for the school is up 4.56%. It has been reviewed by the Joint Budget Committee. Thank you both for your time, which did not recommend any changes to the Joint School Board, and the Joint School Board in turn, 2 nights ago on Tuesday, recommended that budget without any changes. However, when we look at the thick packet here, and I'll take you to this page in just a second, you'll actually see that Alton's high school tuition cost goes down in this budget, just by a smidge. And the reason for that is that high school operating costs are divided based on the percentage of students from Alton and Barnstead enrolled at the school who reside in each town. So currently this year, Alton is paying 47.77% of the operating costs of the high school because 47.77% of the high school students last year came from Alton. Everything in education lags by a year or sometimes even 2, which can be awful. Meaning confusing, there's no negative effect of it, it's just a hassle to keep track of sometimes. But next year, and this budget is based on the current year's distribution of students, which has 45.55% of our local students, our Alton and Barnstead students, coming from Alton. So as a result, even with a high school operating budget that's up 4.56%, Alton's share is down by almost 1/4 of a percentage point, which is only $13,412, nevertheless. It's basically level funded. We probably want to stick to budget for a while. Everything else on my cover memo relates to strategic initiatives and warrant articles, so quickly before we get to that stuff probably at the end. We are currently operating the only open enrollment or public school choice school in the state, and we have 31 students who don't live in Alton or Barnstead attending Prospect Mountain High School. On October 17th, the New Hampshire Supreme Court issued a unanimous opinion reinforcing that sending districts must pay tuition under the current law. Whether they agree with the law or not, and I've never expressed an opinion on the law, we follow the law, and that's what the law says. So we have some aged receivables that we're in the process of collecting and working on collecting, and this year, I expect to invoice something between $450,000 and $500,000, and if I know it's 31 students, why don't I know how much the tuition will be? Under the law, in order to calculate our students' tuition for this year, we need to know what every school district in the state's per pupil cost was last year, and we get that information from the Department of Ed typically in the first week in January. So when I do see you in January, I might have that data, and it has happened before that I bring some charts and graphs that night if there's more to share. I like data, and I think it's helpful.
Just have a quick question, I'm
Please.
sorry.
Yeah.
So how is the percent Barnstead Alton kids, how does that change with these 31?
It doesn't. So what we do is, for the purpose of this operating budget calculation, we only work with that group. So this year, let's say it's 485 kids, right?
Okay.
And that's a great question. I think it's important because moving forward, there's going to be an obvious question about what happens with this revenue, right? And this revenue is intended, hopefully, to do two things, but ultimately it's up to the voters. But hopefully to do two things. Fund the high school's 5-year capital plan so the place never gets run down is one of those two things, and reduce property taxes. So when that happens, reducing property taxes, because the two towns do not equally share in paying the costs, the two towns will not equally share in receiving those financial benefits, right? That money coming back. So it'll change every year. It has happened during my service year that Alton had more kids than Barnstead at the high school. It's just, I've been here when we hit the pivot point, and now that we're on the other side. And just, it's a function of two things. It's real estate, cost, and birth rate. I don't see this changing. When I'm in Barnstead, I tell them, you are on the path to 60%, and this is part of your reality, which is one of the reasons I think these revenue-generating strategic projects we've been working on are so important. Because Alton and Barnstead, 22 years ago now, really, you locked into a form of a marriage and tied your financial fortunes in the area of public education together. And that means we have a common interest in making sure that the voters in both towns can continue to support the cost of public education.
I have a question too. What is the point where students coming in would require extra teachers? Because I know right now it's the tablet and then whatever they're eating and.
It's a great question. I'm
Yeah.
glad you asked it.
Yeah.
And I do things like this, and I wish you had a room full of people, right, often, because it's so important when people have to make these decisions. It seems like it would be helpful if they could really have a good understanding of these things. So my job is to recommend to the school board, and the school board's job is to set its capacity each year for open enrollment students at a level that doesn't require adding staff. And that's what we've been working on this now for years. So I think we have a really good handle on how to do that. And our number, I think, is about 30 students in each incoming class, which is actually kind of a lot. But what the board, so love it or hate it, agree or disagree, what the board, when I first met them now, this is year 7 for me, they were trying not to cut programs that they believe the community really values. We have a wood shop, we have a metal shop, we have a terrific robotics program. We have 2 music teachers, one for band and one for voice and chorus. We have 2 art studios. We have a family and consumer science class. We have a business teacher. But I always use that list because you're not going to eliminate the English department, right? Budget cuts will start in those areas. And we have kids that really rely on those things. I mean, our music programs are doing great. We have wonderful music programs. So we've kept those things. But the first year we started open enrollment, the average class size in our history department was 11.9 students. If these strategic efforts don't pan out, and things are going better than I would have predicted so far, but if these things don't pan out, there will be cuts. It's inevitable. It will have to happen. So if you said, so the school's overstaffed, I wouldn't disagree, but it's been a strategic decision, right? We're trying to maintain these things that Alton and Barnstead students have been benefiting from and bring in revenue to moderate the costs. It's just a different way of thinking about public education that I don't know why it's not been part of our system for a long time.
And ultimately, you'll have 120, hopefully.
So 30 a year, yeah. And I've worked in a school of choice before, so I'm actually used to this. A much bigger school, we brought in between 330 and 350 ninth graders every year, but we also received 500 applications typically. It was a great place, great school, served 1,350 or thereabouts students. And there's some attrition that goes, because I've seen it, how it works. There's some attrition that takes place. So if we bring in 30-ish students each freshman year, we'll probably have 110 to 115 total each year. But if you do the math in today's numbers, that's about a $2 million a year revenue generating program, roughly.
About 10% of the budget, huh? The town budget anyway, roughly, right?
Yeah. And every bit helps, right? And if I'm doing something wrong.
I'm new to this in the last couple of years. Welcome to the club. Terrific talent for losing one, two, so it's what I do. So this like it's a piece of paper saying.
I just had about 3 more today.
So Hal, and I don't want to go too long on any topic, and I know that you probably have a certain amount of time you want to be here and not longer. So please move me along when you need to, please do. A school board could decide, look, we think we'd like to be even bigger and add some staff, and then it's a matter of doing the math, right? Is it worth it, right? For the amount of revenue, you know, like, I think it would be a guidance counselor. I think the most likely next thing, if you went above the threshold number of students we can handle at our current size and staffing, it would probably be a school counselor for open enrollment students that you would add first, before we would be looking at teachers. But again, my goal is to try to get this thing up and running, because otherwise, and I don't want to be overly dramatic, but enrollment decline poses an existential threat to this high school. And if you've lived here long enough, you've watched other schools in the area, some of them, there are some wonderful schools near us, but you've watched some of them decline significantly. And whether they've realized it or not, the cause has been enrollment decline. It forms a cycle of decline. Families leave as a result of lower enrollment and fewer programs, or lower quality, I should say, programs, the perception of lower quality programs being offered. More families leave. And then you have to cut more positions, or you can't have a certain sport that you used to have because there aren't enough kids to do it. And as a result of that, more families leave. So even if you still have enough families living in the community to run the school at the same size it was 5 years ago, more of them are opting out. And that's the cycle of decline that in an age of declining enrollment, public schools go through. And for whatever reason, the system writ large has not addressed enrollment decline. It's been happening for 20 years. It's going to happen for another 15, I guarantee it. And I don't see the system as a whole being able to get organized to do something about it. It will If anything is done, it will have to be done to the system, not by the system, in my opinion. Maybe I'm getting a little bit jaded as I near the end of my career. But that's how I see it. So we have the opportunity to generate some revenue, and it is worth talking about, so thank you for asking. On the warrant, the school board here in Alton has a repeating warrant article that it recommends that the CIP committee is very aware of to raise and appropriate $120,000 to add to the boiler replacement fund. We have 5 boiler rooms at Alton Central School because it's a building that was built and then added onto and added onto and added on. Each time they did it, they added another boiler. The other proposed warrant articles that are in the thick packet here at the end are not cost items, but they relate to strategic programs like open enrollment and a related program, which is we have started an online school that we probably want to talk money before we get to those things. I gave you a sheet here because someone inevitably will ask this question at some point. So whether you choose to ask questions about it or not is entirely up to you, of course. This is a summary of what I refer to as E&D, or excess and deficiency. That means surplus funds over the last 5 years. And the most notable thing is you'll see that for 2025, which is last year, the 2024-25 school year, we call that fiscal 25, that we had $328,110 in surplus. But you'll see that the unassigned fund balance we reported to the state on our MS-25 form was 0, and that is because we are a member of the School Care Risk Pool. Did everybody read about School Care this fall? School Care is an insurance risk pool. There are 2 of these risk pools in the state that serve schools and municipalities. One is called Health Trust. School Care is the other. School Care is what's known as an assessable risk pool, meaning if the school care board, I want to say fails, they wouldn't like it, but if the school care board fails to safeguard its financial position and their reserves run down due to higher claims than they projected, they are allowed to assess their members in the middle of a year, even without us having a chance to budget for the cost. Over the summer of first 2024, the school care board learned that their reserves had declined by $10 million. Less than half, but about more than 30%. They did not take aggressive action by significantly raising premiums to raise money to put in reserve. Instead, they hoped it would get better. I may not be presenting a positive impression of the School Care Board of Directors, but I've formed my own impression and it's not positive, and they know it. I'll get to that. Then this year, in the summer, 2025, they learned that claims were going to exceed projections this year. They were going to have to dip into their reserves, and they projected a net loss this year of $4.5 million.
Eek.
So they decided, after consulting with their actuaries, to raise $30 million in a one-time assessment to both cover their projected claim loss, their experience this year, and rebuild their reserves, all in one fell swoop. So they sent out assessment notices to all of their something between 60 and 80 member entities, mostly school districts, some cities and towns, totaling $30 million. Alton and Barnstead each were hit with an assessment. Alton has more member entities than Barnstead does in the school care risk pool. So we were hit with between $300,000 and $400,000 of that $500,000. It was about $350,000 for Alton and $150,000 for Barnstead. The way we were allowed to cover it, the Department of Revenue Administration and the Department of Education issued some guidance to us this fall that said if we had submitted our MS-25 report, which is our end-of-year financial statement after audit, and we had any unassigned fund balance on that report, we would be allowed to restate that report and use that unassigned fund balance to pay our assessment to school care, and that is what we did. Unfortunately, that means our return of funds to the municipality through its property taxes is going to be zero this year. Some towns had to talk about, and I don't know where they've all landed, doing things like holding special meetings or having budget freezes and whatnot, just to meet this unanticipated health insurance charge. We didn't have to do that.
So is this school care? What is it? I mean, what is it?
So it's called a risk pool, and what that means is they're not an insurance company. They buy insurance from insurance companies on behalf of their members. And by putting a whole bunch of us together, the idea is to spread out the risk. I've been self-insured at a school district before where I had about 300 employees. And the risk inherent in that is, you know everybody, and 3 people have a family member with cancer, and somebody else gets in a car accident, and in 1 year, boom, you have this huge surge in claims. By having all of these members kind of cobbled together in the school care pool, the idea is distribute the risk.
So is that who the school has health insurance for the?
All of our employees, all of our employee health insurance.
So you mentioned that there's other towns in there? How do
So,
towns get into school?
so school care was originally established so that it could serve schools and municipalities in New Hampshire. It's just mostly schools.
And they just happened to assess us the exact amount that was our surplus?
It wasn't the exact amount. We had other funds. I'd actually have to go back and look at the memo for all the detail, but it was, the lion's share of it came from this surplus
The
line.
surplus is,
So we took all the surplus and then we put a little bit of other money with it to pay the assessment. We didn't have to freeze the budget. We didn't have to come back, we were able to figure it out, but
so
nobody's
is that
happy.
why the health insurance went up so much this year?
So if I were a health insurance company and I failed to raise my premiums enough 2 years ago
Yeah.
to cover my costs, I would probably have to make it up all at once, and that's how I would evaluate. Did I already tell you? We have 2 plans, yellow and orange. I started with that, didn't I? Sorry.
So a stupid question here, because I don't know, I'm sure you shopped for other insurance.
So it's not a stupid question. I'm
As
glad
we
you
get out
asked
of
it,
the
and
school care
of
thing.
course, we've looked around. Leaving the pool between now and the end of the year is virtually impossible. So shopping around is just a longer term project. I'm not thrilled to say that I've probably been the most engaged superintendent of schools in looking at school care since this happened. I've gone to their board meetings and their annual meeting, and I've been to some of their meetings where I've been the only person even there, which I find shocking considering what just happened. I understand if they're doing great, you don't go, fine, but this isn't great.
Was it poor management on their part? I mean, was there, I mean, lots of times if you're an investor in, like GE went down the tubes because of the whatever he's called, the head honcho.
So the executive director of school care and the members of their board of directors would probably characterize it as bad luck. I don't necessarily believe in bad luck. Like I said, I've been self-insured before, and in that scenario, as the superintendent of schools, it was my school board that had to make the rate-setting decisions, and I had to give them recommendations. With school care, it's an elected board of directors comprised 50% of management representatives and 50% of NEA New Hampshire labor representatives. And I don't think there's a lot of financial management and actuarial experience on that elected board. I think it's more of a political body than a management body. And our school board 2 nights ago voted to sign a letter that I composed to that board of directors, expressing some of our specific concerns, asking for a meeting to discuss them in depth, and strongly requesting some changes. In the meantime, though, it takes a couple of years to look for alternatives, and we'll be doing that.
Just one more question,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
serious, yeah.
So because school care lost all this money,
Yep.
and because the health insurance rates are going up for the town, this school, the town, is what the employees pay, is that going up?
So when premiums go up everybody's costs go up. The employees pay more, the district pays more. What's happening right now, without being too specific, is the teachers and support staff at the high school are in bargaining. And the teachers' negotiation, we are allowed to say in public, has gone to impasse, declared by the board, the school board. And hopefully it gets resolved, of course. We'd rather have a contract than not. But at the moment, they're at impasse. And one of the issues, I think, again, it's okay to say once you're at impasse, is healthcare. And the board
yeah.
looking to control healthcare costs.
I mean, it just makes sense that if,
I can say that, right? Thanks.
that if school care did what they did,
Yep.
and the taxpayers have to come up with all this extra money, it funnels down.
So
Or it should funnel
one of the open issues, and again, I'm a little surprised other school districts, boards and superintendents haven't been as engaged on this as I've been. We sent a letter, I had our attorney do it, but we sent a letter to the NEA pointing out that several years ago, in fact, in that one-page report I gave you, there's a year here with a really significant return, 2022. That's not because the schools underspent their budget by $1 million. That would seem like that was a bad budget. That is a year when school care's reserves had exceeded, they have an upper limit too. So they had too much money left at the end of the year. So they had to give some back. They call it a rate holiday.
They had to.
It's
No,
unfortunate.
I'm just.
So
I'm sure
you're
they
right.
pro-
No,
yeah.
Greg,
I mean,
sorry,
they probably didn't
Mr.
want to.
Fuller.
No.
It's,
That was my
it
father.
is a little infuriating. Like, I'm injecting a lot of my opinion tonight, and I'm sorry about that. I really try not to too much, but I've been really tied up in this issue for the last few months, and I've found it very frustrating. So the state law that allows school care to operate the way they do sets upper limits on how much money they're allowed to hold in reserve. And again, if I were self-insured, as I've been, there'd be no limit on how much I could hold in reserve, and I would consider that a good thing. But the state requires school care to redistribute surplus back to its members if they have, quote unquote, too much in reserve. And we can see it happened that year on the chart. The reason I sent a letter to NEA, the Teachers Association, about that at the state level is when that happened, they made sure, and no argument from me, it's in our bargaining agreements, that whatever percentage of premium had been paid by employees received that percentage of the returned funds. And that's fair, but in our current situation, then, should not employees have to contribute that percentage of the assessment? And school care has provided no input or guidance on that question. And I haven't quite received a response from the Teachers Association yet. And I'm not talking about our local association, by the way, which are actually wonderful and very cooperative and good partners to us. I'm talking about their state association.
Yeah, you probably won't.
I'm not holding my breath. Are we on YouTube?
Just want to share this conversation
Yeah.
with a few other things in perspective, because they're dealing with the school care issue, but I want to let you know that some of that is preempted because mid-year in June, we lost our entire interlocal trust. They gave us 30 days notice and they cut our insurance for the whole town. Like they booted us. We were lucky. They struggled for calling every representative we could find, but the entire thing went belly up. This is a risk pool of municipalities and towns, what, roughly 25 communities?
Bankrupt.
25, 30 went bankrupt. And we actually got hit. You want to talk about like, and I'm just trying to give you the what's happening globally in the local government, state government right now. They went belly up and they actually started assessing us bills for uncovered claims, health claims. We got hit, what, 140, what was that one, the bill for the? It was like 60,000. But I was on the municipal website, the listserv, and there was communities in the town, Laconia, they were getting hit with like $300,000 to $600,000 in uncovered medical bills that the town itself had to cover for the employees. So So the employees were getting threatened to be taken to collections because the risk pool went belly up. So and when you ask like, how does it, you know what I mean? That I think was sort of a catalyst in the town. And also I think it might have kind of put, I'm sorry.
School care. Yep.
Into this gear, because why they went belly up is their board and they have their people out there that are supposed to specialize in setting the rates. And they seriously undershot, like they were assessing rates at like a 14 to 16%, and the actual, when they went back to look at it, was like 24% in increases. So over the last 3 or 4 years, they were undercharging because they weren't keeping up with the crazy healthcare costs. So they were jumping up rates and premiums in the risk pool, but it was the healthcare system was jumping even higher, and they weren't keeping up. So eventually, it was a house of cards, and it all fell in because they didn't have enough money in the risk pool anymore. And I'm just speculating, but I think that leads to when
I agree with everything you said.
Jim was talking about school care coming back and increasing. They undershot last year, so they had this big boost this year.
My
because
opinion.
They're scared of what just happened with the interlocal trust because they had to put their, their head in their hands and basically go to every community and say, we're done, we're belly up. That's pretty bad for
The most frustrating thing to me is when you are self-insured, and the school care risk pool is basically a self-insurance pool. It's not that different from when I worked at a school district and we were self-insured. It's just that instead of 300 members and 600 lives covered, their numbers are many multiples of that, right? So setting rates is a three-part process. First, predicting your claim experience. And the underlying problem is the crazy increasing cost of healthcare, period, that none of us are able to control. So that's the underlying problem. But knowing that exists, step number one is try to predict your claim experience. Step number two is look at your descriptions of benefits and find the balancing point between cost and benefits. And this is where my central criticism of the school care pool and the composition of the board of directors comes in. I'll come back to that. Because if you're not thinking about the financial health of the pool because you're focusing more on keeping your benefits, you can stumble down a dark alley pretty easily, I think. And then the third step is to buy reinsurance or stop-loss insurance. And this is where I'm particularly frustrated. Because if I have, it's really important when I know I have this much in reserve. I've got a small self-insurance pool. I have a $6 million reserve fund. And that's a very small self-insurance pool. And I've got 500, 600 people in the pool. And I look at our claim experience from the last few years. I look at the rising cost of healthcare. I'm not an expert, but I work with actuarial consultants, and school care does too. You have to do that in this business. And you decide the cost of reinsurance or stop-loss insurance at $80,000 per person in a year versus $100,000 per person in a year. Like I've got to judge essentially on a seesaw. And what that means is if Ryan's in my risk pool and he gets ill and needs a lot of medical treatment next year, I'm going to pay his claims out of my reserves up to the stop-loss number. And then I'm going to purchase reinsurance from Sun Life or some other company to cover everything else. So if he ends up needing $600,000 in care, but I purchased stop-loss insurance at 90, I pay 90. And Sun Life or whoever I bought that stop-loss policy from covers everything else. So for me, I find it borderline inexcusable that a company that exists just for this purpose doesn't figure it out. They had stop-loss insurance, but clearly the numbers haven't worked. Obviously, the numbers haven't worked because they were projecting a $4.5 million loss this year. They don't invite me to their parties anymore. I still show up sometimes, but I don't get invitations. And I'm going to keep showing up. We're not done. This isn't over because we're still insured by this pool. So we're members and we're married to each other, for better or for worse, until we make a different decision.
Yes, be a thorn in their side.
I don't think you have to worry. Right, Christie?
Yep.
I'm not, in some ways I haven't, well, it doesn't matter about me. It's not a popularity contest, we'll just say that. How's that? Okay, so healthcare, that was fun.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's just because we had our own rules this year with that, it was scary. We hadn't, Anthem hadn't bailed us out. We lost Harvard Pilgrim because that was who we were covered through the risk group. Anthem stepped up and offered us care to go back, and they actually locked us in at 18. 3%. It's huge. Huge.
That's
So
good.
We were gonna, on a default budget, but out of that.
The last complication for me and for any school district on health insurance, because I think we've done a good job covering it and beating it up a little bit, is that in order to make a change, it usually requires negotiation. So not only does the school board have to find a more stable, lower cost, or more attractive, for whatever reason, alternative, in its bargaining agreements, healthcare is specified. So to change employees' healthcare, you actually have to go to the bargaining table and seek agreement to change the healthcare. So that is an issue that a lot of, again, some districts are engaged in right now, and a lot are trying to wrap their heads around right now. Yeah, great.
I'm not gonna ask. I'm not gonna ask. I'm gonna shut my mouth.
I like it, can you tell?
Sorry. No, yeah. I'm
Okay.
gonna shut my-
So the budget? Look, one night to go line item by line item through a budget is probably not reasonable, and I understand that, and I apologize, as I think I have in the past. The elementary school operating budget, or the Alton School District operating budget behind the blue sheet, begins with a summary sheet, and it's a summary by function. So this tells you the total amount in each function of the budget. What that means is, just for example, at the very top, 1100 regular program, that's the general education program at Alton Central School. So our pre-K program through 8th grade, and regular education is all of our 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade classrooms, things like that. Basically everything that's not special education or doesn't have its own function farther down the sheet, like for example, guidance, you can see as a separate function. These function codes and titles are prescribed by the Department of Education, so we didn't decide, let's have a function for guidance. This is how we're required to do this. And it gives by the way, it's the same in every state also, that these functions exist. They may use different numbers or different names, but they all exist. And it allows for comparison. If we didn't all use the same budget categories, it would be very difficult to compare how schools are doing things across states or across the country. So it's probably pretty self-explanatory. You were a budget committee, so you're used to looking at documents like this. You see our actual expenditures in 23-24 and 24-25. Our budget is 25-26, that's the current year, compared to our proposed budget for next year. And then at the right, we've calculated the dollar change and the percent change in each. And the only thing I would caution is, if you look, for example, at function 2150 speech services, you see a 62.72% change, but then you look at the dollars involved, and although they're significant, they don't hold a candle to the 1100s function at the top of the page, which is a $4.8 million function. The detail, each line within each function, is on all the following pages, and there are probably 28 or 30 or some number like that of them. Yeah, 27, 28, about 30 pages. So I sit in front of budget committees that want to go line by line through budgets, and I sit in front of budget committees that say, well, that's not realistic to do in one meeting, so let me just ask you a couple of questions and I'll do whatever you want. Or talk about some of the things that I think are significant here if you want me to.
So real quick, the 2150 speech and then the one below it, those are people?
So
That
those,
increase?
those are a combination of people or services we have to purchase.
And is that related to special ed?
Special education, yep, I was just,
Which is
took the words
also
right out of my
related-
mouth.
Which is also related to transportation special ed. Okay.
Yeah, so the special ed transportation function is up over 100%. It's, so more than doubling. So when a student can't be educated with the resources we have in the district because of disabilities, federal law, IDEA, passed in the 1960s, requires us to purchase or sub out their education to a school outside of our district. Out-of-district special education placements are expensive. I think on the low end, these days, we're looking at about $70,000 a year, and they go up from there. There are, in rare cases, residential special ed schools. We are responsible for paying those costs if we have a student who needs that kind of education. There are children for whom, and I am not complaining, I would not want the family of a special needs child to hear me and think that I'm complaining about this. I'm simply reporting this is what we do. This is what the federal law requires us to do, so we do it. There are children who we haven't seen in years in Alton, whose educations we pay for every year, because the law requires us to do that. So you see those costs in special ed tuition and special ed transportation. We've seen an interesting thing, interesting is probably not a good enough word, in the last few years where the daily transportation cost for a special ed placement is beginning to exceed the cost of the placement itself. Yep.
Because of where you have to send them?
So,
Or,
the-
you know,
because it's so hard to find somebody to do it. So one of the things we've done in the last few years is either through our capital process at the high school or through a federal grant that we got at the elementary school, is we've purchased some vans. I've been advertising for a year for van drivers. If I could put a person in one of our vans for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, figure total, even at a pretty healthy hourly rate, I would save $80,000 potentially on one student's transportation. And our problem has been finding people to do that job. We continue to advertise. Please tell your friends. It's a part-time job. A couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon. I promise to be nice to them. We would love to find a couple of van drivers to help transport, because it's just, you can see the money. It's outrageous.
So if we just, and I'm just talking numbers again.
These do.
If we just took out those things I brought up, the increases like 1.9% in the budget.
Yeah, so we've,
Right, but we have, but
it's frustrating,
No,
right,
right.
to have cut some positions, right, to continue to take what I think is a very conservative approach to the budget.
But it's out of
And
your
then find out we're up almost 4%, which is not what I'm trying to do.
but it's out of your hands. It's out of everybody's hands. So
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah.
The only reason I kind of go like that when you say that, I agree with you 100%, but every school district board and superintendent all over the state or the country this year is going to say, oh, we can't control this stuff. And sometimes, I don't know that they necessarily have controlled everything they can. I really feel like we have, or we try to, which makes a situation like we're in this year particularly frustrating. And honestly, I'm very aware of the situation in the community. Right? The election happens at the same time. I know the results. And I get that our finance situations, our budgets don't exist in vacuums. So the more conservative a budget the school board can produce and propose, we're helping, right, potentially. And so it's a little frustrating. I mean, I don't mean to complain, but it's a little frustrating to be here with as much increase as we have this year when it is essentially a bunch of stuff we haven't been able to control.
But it is what it is.
It is what it
And
is.
we can't change it, so, okay.
And I'll keep going. Do you want to go through the budget, Priscilla? Were you about to ask a question?
no, for me, as far as I'm concerned, we can just do this cover sheet and but that, I don't know how everybody else feels about it. Speech service, is that for children who have trouble
Yeah, so
articulating
Yeah,
something?
we employ speech pathologists, and in some cases, we have to purchase speech services, like for a student in and out of district placement. I had a conversation let me come back to that. I'll answer your question first. Like Greg asked, these are for kids with IEPs, kids with special needs. Typically, younger students require speech, and then as they get older and they receive those services, they come off our caseloads. If I can go back to this for a second, though, I think this is important, and I also know a little bit about some of you, so I know what your other interests and connections are. I had a conversation with members of the state Senate recently about this topic, and I think it was really well received. That when a child leaves our school system to go to a charter school, and I want to be clear, I have 5 children. One of my daughters graduated from a charter school. So I am not against charter schools. I love charter schools, and I particularly loved my daughter's charter schools. In New Hampshire, the law says, a state law, not the federal law doesn't require this, and I think that's the important distinction. Federal law says the local school district has to offer a free and appropriate public education. We call it a FAPE for a child with a disability. So that means whatever services they need, speech, OT, we have to provide it. When the family is offered a FAPE in our school district and then decides, you know what, we think this charter school over here would provide a better environment for our child, terrific, go find out. In New Hampshire, I then still have to provide the special education services for that child. And because my employees who provide the services are in my school, and sending them over there means more time, mileage, it's disruptive, it probably doesn't work, especially if we have, like I have 5 kids who go to charter schools right now in our 2 school districts. So to send our staff running around to provide services to them would actually be cost prohibitive. Doesn't make sense. Our staff have jobs in our schools. So I end up either paying consultants or I pay the charter school itself and they set their rates. So instead of a speech pathologist who might have a caseload of 50 students working in our school for a salary and benefits that total about $100,000 once you factor in health insurance and everything else, now I'm paying $120 an hour for a consultant for just that one child. It's not required under federal law. It's only required by a state law. And I'm going to continue to be engaged with the legislature over the next couple of years about asking if that's really what we want to be doing. Not to deny families access to special ed services, but simply to say, if they've been offered at your local school, you have parental choice. You can stay here and you can get those services. Or if you think the other environment is going to be better for your child, go there and find out the services aren't necessary anymore because of that change in environment. But right now, we kind of have the worst of both worlds in a way. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk about that. I didn't know that was going to happen here. Yeah, so speech and OT is that combination of it's our in-person services, but then we also have to purchase some of them. A change in that statute, in that state law, would eliminate some of that outsourcing, some of those costs.
So the 3.84% is, increase is for, the Alton Central School and the high school.
Right, everything.
Together.
That's right.
Everything together.
Yeah, so at the bottom of the function list, so all the functions from 1100 through 2725, that's Alton Central School. And then there's one line for Prospect Mountain High School. It's like a tuition line, basically. And then the BTOD items below that are one of the 2 ways that we divide up shared costs. BTOD stands for billable to other districts. And that's because in some cases, we have an employee from the high school or an employee from Barnstead doing work in Alton or an employee from Alton doing work in the others. And we actually have to bill ourselves across the system to do that. If you want to look at the high school in detail, not just as maybe this is a good segue, and if you want me to come back, you can tell me to come back. But that Prospect Mountain High School tuition line, if you want to look at the detail that comprises it, go to the green cover sheet, which is the next section packet, and you have It's landscape instead of portrait orientation, but it's essentially the same kind of function list, and it's for the high school. So this is what Hal and Priscilla went through line by line with their colleagues from Barnstead at our joint budget.
And that's what's on the second side of this.
And that's on the backside of the cover sheet, yeah. So that shows the high school and its total bottom line. The line that sticks out on this usually, and I'm just gonna address it because I always end up answering this question in both towns, is the superintendent's office always shows this 25 to 30% increase every year. I do not get a 25 to 30% raise every year. The reason that shows up that way is we have a line for non-union employee salary increases. And what our business administrator Heidi does is she takes a percentage of what we're paying all those employees. We don't include salary increases for non-union employees in the budget. We put a pool, and that's what we call it, the pool, the raise pool. We put it in the superintendent's function in the budget. And then in June, well, May, if we have our acts together, I go to the school board and propose salary adjustments for our non-union employees. The reason it shows up as such a big increase here is because after we do that by vote of the school board, we then move that money into the functions where all those employees' salaries are. So the money leaves the 23-20 function and gets pushed around into other parts of the budget. So that when you look at the 25-26 superintendent's office budget at 274, 254, when we proposed it last year, it had all that raise money in it also, so it was much higher. So now when we propose next year's, and it includes that probably a $65,000 raise pool, it shows this big percentage increase. And if that made it worse instead of better, I'm really sorry. But it's a unique thing that's been happening in this school system for decades, apparently. That was new to me when I came here, but it does work. It gives the appearance of massive increases every year for the superintendent's fund, which is just fun, I guess.
But still, the whole total for the Prospect Mountain is under 5%, and
Oh, yeah.
the total for the whole school district is under 4%, and for me, that's reasonable. But I don't know what everybody else thinks, but.
Our default budget for the SB2 community, and we do have a traditional meeting in Barnstead, but for SB2, our default budget is $137,685 under the proposed budget.
How much is that again?
It's behind the, what color is this?
Salmon.
It's behind the salmon sheet. So the default budget is 654,357. The proposed budget is 792,042. So the default budget is 137,685 less than the proposed budget, if we were to go into default. And then there's detail about where those numbers come from behind that. I'm going to guess there isn't a lot of discussion on the default budget. And go to the purple sheet, which is warrant articles, but maybe that's too fast.
Any questions on the budget?
Warrant articles are in addition to the under 5%.
So
Warrant
cost
articles,
warrant articles are in addition. We only have one cost item currently, but we are negotiating contracts right now. So those would be cost articles that don't exist yet. The deadline for those to exist in SB2 this year is January 13th. And the school board's January meeting is scheduled to take place on January 13th. So that if we resolve those negotiations, those articles can be approved on the 13th of January. And then how we get to you after that, we would have to. We'd have some work to do, wouldn't we? Because it's the same date for both of us. So we can talk, maybe we might have to roll out The truth is, if it's going to be resolved, I know it's going to be earlier than that, so maybe we could get the board to act. We'll figure it out. We'll work together and we'll figure that out so we don't put you into scheduling. Because right now you'd be upside down on schedule, so that doesn't work, does it? Yeah, we will figure that out. Tomorrow, I'll find out what your, a couple of weeks. Find out when we're gonna figure it out, but we can handle that. That shouldn't be hard for us. So here the only cost warrant article is the $120,000 appropriation for the boiler fund at Alton Central Pool.
Do we know how much is in there now?
We do. It is the yellow sheet at the very back of your packet. There are fund balances currently in all our capital reserve and expendable trust funds. So you've got a boiler CRF. It's numbered 4 because there used to be a lot more funds, and a few years ago we did a cleanup article to just close some.
347. Are there any
347.
anticipated expenses coming up in that?
So what we expect to do is raise money for 5 years and then replace a boiler. Raise money for 5 years and replace a
How
boiler.
much is the boiler today?
Easily.
How much?
$500,000.
Oh,
Installed, everything.
so
Like fund control.
theoretically, if this passes, you guys could replace the boiler next year?
Theoretically.
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 How old is the
It would
boiler?
probably wait 1 more year.
How old is the boiler currently?
So we have 5 boiler rooms and we've been doing replacements. So the year I became Alton's superintendent, one was being done that summer. And I want to say this is my 4th year as Alton's super. I'm really bad at this kind of memory and math combination.
How old are you?
Sorry.
I think, but this is my 4th year with Alton, so next year would be the 5th year of accumulating funds for next boiler. And we would probably look to do the next boiler, not this coming summer, but the following summer. Are they just replaced automatically, or do they like have a 18-year long for the average? 25. Yeah, a boiler should, it's a boiler in a building at the school, it should last 25 years.
Having fund protects you against a catastrophic failure because it at least mitigates the cost. And we also have other funds here
Feedback.
that we could go to. So if we had a boiler failure, we also have a buildings and grounds reserve with $647,000 in it. So we could replace a boiler in January
But you
if
couldn't
we
do
had an
much more.
emergency.
You couldn't do much more.
Right.
Well, then we'd be, right, and you'd have drained all those funds. So when a roof started leaking, you'd then have to sort of,
So you have 5 boilers and you replace them every 25 years and.
so it never ends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's,
Terrific. So I told the CIP committee this, if you want me to not talk about this, just say the word, please. I don't know when Alton is going to want to stop investing in this 1956 that's been sort of Frankenstein glommed onto since then over the years and build a new building. And I'm not suggesting that you need to. But I do think, because this is an area where I have some experience in my career, that as I get closer to the end of my contract, I'm going to try to get the school board to consider doing an engineer's evaluation of the existing conditions in the building, which would give us a summary of the deferred maintenance for the next 10 years, or the anticipated maintenance for the next 10 years. So we could compare that cost to the likely cost of construction and give what I think for Alton would be a 5 to 10 year period to consider when do we draw the line on the maintenance of this building versus the construction of a new one. And if the answer is we don't want to do it, fine. All we've done is provide good information. But I think that's, again, I've done it before. I'm doing it in Barnstable right now, and I've done it previously. And setting the stage for that conversation is something I could help with during my time here.
so the main part of Alton Central School was built in 56?
55, 56, something like that.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I was born.
So you know how old you are.
But there are beautiful buildings, school buildings that were built in the 40s, right after the war. Wasn't called Reconstruction, that's the South. There was,
Yeah, so Priscilla, I do understand that everything I just said implies that I think this building is near the end of its life. I don't know that, but that is, so the cost of an engineer's assessment is significant, but it's not so bad if it prevents you from replacing something that doesn't need to be replaced yet. Because they really do, they tell you, here's how much you should expect to have to spend on capital improvements and maintenance over the next decade. It's great information. The worst thing that happens in schools, and this was one of my fears with Prospect Mountain High School, which might sound funny because I came here and everyone goes, we have a new school, it's a new school, we have this wonderful new school, and it is, it's beautiful up there. I hope you've been there, it's gorgeous. It's 22 years old, which feels new, but it's not new.
Don't start.
Craig, how long does the boiler last? We just, right?
I don't know. I don't know about those ones.
So this is, again, this connects back to the revenue conversation and thinking a little bit differently about public administration. Is if you want it to always be, and it can. I came, by the way, and Priscilla, I want you to hear this. I came here from a district where our high school building was 50 years old. You could eat off the floor. It absolutely does not. There are people there now who think they need a new building, and I know they're wrong. Because the only reason they think they need a new one is because it's old. But it's been very well maintained. We had a 5-year capital plan, and every year we spent a significant amount of money on keeping the place in great shape. Not just maintenance, but improvements, meaning it just doesn't have to be replaced. Because you can have a beautiful old building if you take care of it. And the mistake school districts make all the time is they don't take care of what they have.
and a lot of construction is, I can't say it in a public meeting.
Shoddy? Shoddy's polite. You can say
Not
that.
up to standards.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully the building we're building over in Barnstead is going to be awesome.
So if you can eat off the floor in a 50-year-old building, you should be able to do everything in a 22-year-old
So
building.
in our 20, yeah, I'm glad you said that, Craig. So my objective with the high school has not been to move on from it or anything crazy like that, but to create a 5-year capital plan, which we've done, so that it never gets run down. So the current version of the 5-year capital plan has $4.9 million worth of requests in it over the next 5 years, but they are not all musts. So it's very manageable right now. But I know from some experience in public administration that showing up every year in 2 communities or 10 and saying, hey, we've got another $1.5 million or another $700,000 or another $500,000 for capital, it's not going to work, right? People will remember we approved a $700,000 capital warrant article last year, and now you're back looking for another $500,000. When does this end, right? It doesn't work if you're constantly looking for that money through this process. So the challenge I turned around in my head working with the board here was, how do we find a funding mechanism that both provides tax relief, but might allow the taxpayers and the voters to then say, you know what, it makes sense to keep maintaining and improving the building and grounds. Let's do both. And that brought us to the idea of revenue and open enrollment and everything else that we've already talked about a little bit.
And if you have a new building, you're still going to have these capital reserves that you're going to be dumping money into every year.
I mean,
Because
we aren't pushing money into a capital reserve
No,
in
but,
Barnstead right now because we're doing a building project.
but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, yes.
So-
I mean, it's not like we ever stop, right?
Right. It's just
I get it, believe me.
black hole. You're right. Yeah.
Warrant articles? They're political now. They're not money after the boiler. They're strategic and political.
So we don't have any say in them.
Unless you're interested, I can go home right now.
When is your contract up? No, that's a
I'll
good.
leave today. How mad are you?
No, I'm not.
I am under contract this year and next.
So the
And
school boards will probably work on you for
I
some more
haven't-
years.
I have a wonderful relationship with the school board, and I appreciate everything I have here.
I mean, I've always been critical of the school, always, but
I get it.
you're different.
It's not always comfortable.
So I basically,
One of the reasons that we're.
what he wants us to do is.
It's okay, whatever.
Vote whether we
it's-
approve or
No,
not.
I get it. I get it.
Okay?
Because it's not a black hole, is it? Because it's real people with real bank accounts that are not black holes, right? Funding our municipal needs,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah, yes.
I mean, I grew up in Warner, New Hampshire, and used to go to the Kearsarge Regional School District meeting where my parents and the other folks from Warner and Bradford, it's a 7-town district up there, you know where we are. And I don't know about today, but we were one of the poorer towns in the district. And the perception up there was at the annual district meeting, which all 7 towns attended in person in the high school gym, that the folks from New London and Newbury, the wealthier towns, would show up and vote to buy Cadillacs, figuratively, right, not literally. But then Warner and Bradford have to help pay for them.
It's like Wolfboro for Governor Wentworth.
You got it.
Just saying.
So that frustration has
Lived
existed
that.
in New Hampshire, I mean, my whole life. From it. I do understand.
I've lived it,
completely.
you're living it. It's
Yeah.
not fun.
Okay, so we want to go through the warrant articles?
Well, to the extent you're interested in these things, I do think that public communication is going to be important, because somebody showing up in March, and by the way, nobody comes to the deliberative session, so you know that if you've been there.
Yeah.
It's not well attended, and that's okay, but, and we do try, we send out a fact sheet, but we're careful, because electioneering is illegal, so we try to keep it to a fact sheet that we send out in the mail prior to the election. But after the cost item, there are 3 things here that are important. The first is to establish an SAU merger study committee. If you want to merge multiple SAUs into a single SAU in New Hampshire, you have to follow RSA 194C, and it requires a 2-year process. And the first year, you establish a study committee, and it requires a vote of the electorate in each of the communities that would be merging their SAUs. It doesn't mean that the SAUs would merge. It means that a study committee would be established. And by the way, and I hope this doesn't make you all vote against it, the study committee is comprised of 2 members of the school board from each town, so for us, a total of 4, and a member of the budget committee from each town, so maybe you're against this. But that merger study committee would meet a few times at least. It does not have to meet a certain number of times under the law to look at the issues involved and make a recommendation via a warrant article the next year. So if the merger study committee were to recommend merging what are now 3 SAUs into 1, that wouldn't happen until the following March. This is going to be the most important thing for people to understand, though. Merging SAUs does not mean merging school districts.
Right.
You would still have an Alton school district and an Alton school district budget. You would still have a Barnstead school district and a Barnstead school district budget, and you would still have the Prospect Mountain Joint Maintenance Agreement and JMA Joint Board.
But this is jumping ahead and merging it before the state makes you.
If the state is
Just-
going to make us, this would
Yeah.
get it done sooner.
Okay.
And under a law passed by the legislature in 2024, if we do complete an SAU merger prior to 2030, for the following 2 years, the Department of Education will pay us a grant, unrestricted funds, you can use them for anything you want, in the amount of $200 per student, roughly $520,000. Restricted, this is the my interpretation, somebody else might know better, but I'm pretty sure this is the legislature trying to create an incentive for school districts and school boards to do something that needs to be done. Have fewer political entities controlling or management entities controlling our schools. The irony for us is we've already done everything except for the actual SAU merger, because I'm the superintendent for these 3 SAUs. Heidi Duford is the business administrator for these. The thing you would see different, it wouldn't affect the bottom line. The budgets would look a little different. Right now, I've told you a couple times tonight, there are 2 different ways we divide costs when we need to share a service. You would see an SAU budget. Just like you see the high school budget, and then in the Alton School District budget, there's a line to fund your part of the high school, you would see an SAU budget. And then there would be a line in the Alton School District to fund your share of the SAU budget. So it would, I think, be more transparent than the way those costs are, not that we're hiding them, but the way they're distributed through these budgets now.
Is there paperwork that is onerous with having 3 SAUs?
The billing each other, some of
Yeah.
that would go away. So
Yeah.
it's mostly stuff that happens in our business office.
So it would cut down on that.
It would cut down on the activity we spend, we do billing each other. I'm a bottom line kind of person, so for me, the fact that the state would send us over $500,000 in unrestricted grant funds if we do this thing, that wouldn't actually change the way we operate. I mean, when the voters are in charge, I don't want to say no-brainer, because that feels like it could be interpreted as insulting, but it's hard for me to imagine a reason not to. That's just my opinion.
Can
I'm
I
here to deliver facts.
make a
I'm sorry.
motion?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, look, I was just gonna say, we've got Article 2
Yep.
on whether we want to recommend or not.
Mhm.
Article 7, Article 8, which we're discussing now.
Yep.
9 and 10.
Yep.
So do we want to do each of them tonight?
We only have say in Article 2 and 7, I believe, right? Because that's money issues, am I right?
7, well, there's a line that says,
Well, yeah, it looks like they want us to recommend
yeah, so only
every
two of
one
them.
of them.
Yeah. Yes,
So-
right.
So 9 is out.
So do we want to discuss them all first and then go back through and vote? Do you want to vote on them as we're discussing them?
Oh, we just went through the budget, so we can just do the
Okay.
Article 2, since, unless there's any discussion.
The operating budget. Anybody have any other questions about the operating budget?
I make a motion that we approve the operating budget of $18,792,042.
In the default budget,
Yes, and the default budget, sorry, of, hold on a second. 18,654,357.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0. So Article 7 was the $120,000 we put in the CRF for the boiler.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 7.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0. All right. Now we're up to the SAU Merger Study Committee.
I don't think we do that, do we?
Well, there's
Even though it says that it recommends, there's no money involved in that.
I don't know the answer to the question, sorry.
You don't?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Oh, I take back what I said.
you got him, Greg.
They can get the answer.
I think it involves money because it's gonna change the way it's gonna.
Right, but there's no money written here.
Right.
True. Yep.
So we don't, theoretically, I don't believe, Ryan, you can,
Should we recommend it in
Well,
case
I see
it
no.
needs to be on there, and then if it doesn't, then we can have it removed?
Just to cover ourselves?
I mean, it doesn't hurt to recommend it, right?
And we'll find out whether or not to actually print that, though.
We don't.
Yeah.
understand.
We don't have to? Okay, so that can,
We do have another shot at your public hearing night, right?
Okay.
Seven.
So,
We're gonna work out some scheduling on warrant articles for collective bargaining, and I'll talk to Heidi to find out from DRA about.
okay, Article 9
There's no money there.
is establishing a revolving fund, but it's not.
So this is
actual-
another strategic one, though, and look, if you want me to get the heck out so you can talk to Ryan to be done, I do understand, right? But I also know who I'm talking to, right? And I know that you talk to other people, and I think it's important. we have had a innovation plan approved by the State Board of Education that allows us to start an online alternative program with an in-person outdoor education, kind of like a Boy Scout camp kind of a thing. In fact, we are partnering with a Scout Council to provide that, to do that part. So a student who enrolls in our alternative program that right now serves grades 7 through 12 goes to school online. And the online school is not provided by our Prospect Mountain teachers. It is provided by a company, a corporation called Scribe or K-12 Education. They're publicly traded, ticker symbol LRN. And you can read both positives and negatives like you can about any billion-dollar, very large corporation if you Google information about their history. They've been in business for 25 years, and they operate online schools in 31 states. We have an exclusive agreement with them to operate an online school in New Hampshire. Until now, VLAX, the Virtual Learning Academy Charter School, has had a legislated monopoly on online schools in New Hampshire, online public schools. Anyone can do what they want with a private school. But the only school, the only online school available to families at no charge in New Hampshire has been VLAX, with no competition. This program, if we continue to find regulatory permission, which I do think continues to be a question, but so far they haven't stopped us. This allows families to choose this school for online education, plus this essentially going to camp piece, which they would do either 4 or 6 times a year for 4 days and 3 nights. So that if a family is resistant to the idea of online education because, oh, I want my child to have a social experience, I want the confidence building that comes from group activities, maybe we can provide that in this different way. And there's a tradition around here of camp and that sort of thing that I think a lot of people understand the benefits of those sorts of programs. We're partnered with TL Store, located right in Barnstead, and the concept is that students in this school, they would all have to reside in New Hampshire, would come to TL Store either 4 or 6 times a year. They'd stay a few nights in tents or cabins. And what we proposed in our application to the State Board of Education was that instead of having merit badges like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts have always had, we will have micro-credentials. And they will be the exact same things that the Girl Scouts and Scouting USA have been doing with kids for over 100 years, which I'm the father of an Eagle Scout and the son of a former Boy Scout executive at the state level. And I was not much of a scout myself, but I get it. I understand the benefits for kids of what we can do outdoors. If you're going to operate a program like this, though, when we propose our budget right now for next year, I have a pretty good idea how many kids are going to go to Alton Central School next year. I have a pretty good idea how many kids are going to go to Prospect Mountain High School. How do I predict how many kids in New Hampshire will enroll in this online program? Because under open enrollment, it's open to the whole state. I can tell you that we haven't advertised yet. Our board and Stride, the company, signs their agreement in September. Stride, because they do all the lifting on this, other than me, they hired a director, a New Hampshire-based director for this program, this school, 3 weeks ago. Last Monday, we had 20 students who had found it. Their families had found it online on the Stride website, no advertising, and had enrolled. Last Wednesday, there were 27. This morning, there were 37.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible. So the only way to fund a self-funding public school program is through a revolving fund. And fortunately, we have this law, RSA 194-3C, that allows us to establish a non-lapsing revolving fund so we can receive tuition revenue, but then pay our expenses, because K-12 education doesn't do this for free, right? We pay per student. So in the simplest terms, a student who lives anywhere in the state enrolls in this program. We send the district where they live an invoice for their tuition.
So do we make money?
We receive payment.
Receive payment, and we make
We
money.
receive payment. We pay Stride. We pay the Scout Council that owns TL Storer. Our our net margin remains in the revolving fund. The school board can only use the money in this revolving fund, under this law, to pay for the operation of the program. So as that excess, surplus, net margin, you use the P word, profit, accumulates in the fund, at some point, the joint board would have to bring a warrant article asking the voters' permission to return some of that money to reduce property taxes. And that is the idea behind it.
Geez, imagine a warrant article reducing property taexes.
I
I've
think
never
it might have a
seen one in my
chance.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So since this doesn't, so it's in a sense that, this does involve money, so
We'll find out. You can do it, Jamie.
I make a motion that we recommend this.
But we're not raising and appropriating, it's just establishing
We'll
a
find out.
fund. If there was a raise and appropriate X amount of dollars, and, I mean, that's what I think.
That makes sense, but I just said it in case we needed.
I just think it's a great idea.
Because there are two questions, right? Do you have to recommend? Are you allowed to recommend? Right? We'll get to
Right.
the question. Yeah.
Mhm.
Came back and ruled on saying the CIP is not recommended already.
Right.
Put that, they forced them to put that CIP recommendation. So they're very strict about how to put it.
I'm gonna do this one tomorrow.
Would it be,
So you're gonna have to find out. Yeah, okay.
would it be illegal?
We don't know. They're gonna find out.
What are they gonna do to you? Send you a letter?
Yeah.
So
So you
can I
need to-
Withdraw my, officially withdraw my.
Nomination.
We'll know when we see you.
Yeah, well, let's just wait.
So if, you know, one of the things I struggle with in public administration is that simplicity is so important in public communication. And these initiatives are a little bit complex. So it's been challenging and it continues to be challenging. Article 10 allows the school board to expand its open enrollment program, which is the reason kids who don't live here can enroll here, which right now can only serve grades 7 through 12, because the joint maintenance agreement specifies that it creates a partnership between Alton and Barnstable that can serve grades 7 through 12. What am I doing?
Andy, they're breaking out the snacks.
So we're limited. That online program I was just talking about is only for students in grades 7 through 12 right now. So Article 10 expands our open enrollment program down to kindergarten, not to bring more children into Alton Central School, but to allow kindergarten through 6th grade children to enroll in the online school, which according to Stride, they get more elementary students enrolled in their online schools than they get high school students.
Would this possibly have the same effect?
That's the idea.
Yes.
So revenue comes in, we pay the expenses for the online school and the camp program, and there's a little left over.
So if this is for Alton Central School, why is there a JMA board vote there?
Because Barnstead's going to do the same thing, and we will look to set up a shared program between the two.
But shouldn't the proper thing?
It'll
Alton does
probably
it,
have to say
Barnstable
Alton's
does it,
board. Yeah,
and
it'll probably
then-
have to say Alton's board.
If this
That's a good
other, let's say you merge it goes together, then it will,
Well, it's like the open enrollment, like the Granite State Academy is for the high school now. The JMA is managing that.
But we need to figure that out. We need to.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 1,000,000% for competition, for this open enrollment stuff, as long as it doesn't cost us more money, it should save us money.
It should here, you know, we're positioned well for, if there were statewide unfettered school choice under the law that we have now, the question becomes, it's a question of net effect, not absolute effect. And what I mean by that is, it's not about bringing in 120 kids. It's about how many kids come in and then how many kids leave. And what's the net effect of that? And based on just knowing the other schools around us and where we're positioned geographically, I don't see, and by the way, Prospect Mountain High School, what we have here is really nice. It is a good place. It is
Yeah,
a
but it's
good
22
school.
years old.
It's, and in an age when most schools are 80 years old, right, or 50 years old, it's unusual to have a building this nice, right? And responsible people trying to take good care of it. So, and with revenue, it becomes easier to take good care of. I just think we are uniquely positioned, and there are probably a few other districts in the state who, I know there are some, because their superintendents are calling me, even though they're asking not to be identified, because we are the bad guys in this, politically.
Why?
We are the bad guys.
Why?
Because we, under the state law in New Hampshire, we send tuition bills to other school districts and they have to pay them. That's not how school choice works in every state. In some states, where there's a school choice or open enrollment law, we would simply report to the Department of Education, we have 63 open enrollment students, and the state would send us the tuition for those kids. Now, the funny thing about that is, it's all being collected through property taxes in New Hampshire, right? But it's the act of having to write the check from another school district to us that is rubbing people the wrong way.
Well, they should be doing their job. Saying.
I used to have a T-shirt that said, "Suck it up,
Have
Buttercup."
to be on the other foot.
I mean,
And not
the money should follow the
that
school. It has to
district.
come from the
Have
school.
to get
Our joke at our SAU office has been that when we go to statewide superintendent's meetings, we sit alone.
Well, that's good. You don't want to become polluted.
Do I look distraught?
You could look into the camera and show that.
We'll be okay.
I'm going to get you a job.
Look, it is,
Sorry.
and you know, the truth is, like, these folks are my colleagues, and I do understand. I've worked in other schools, and I've seen other circumstances. I worked for Alton and Barnstead. I was hired by this joint school board. I get paid every 2 weeks by this school system, and my job is to identify, protect, defend your interests, this school system's interests, and right back to the very beginning, and you probably want to be done with me, which I understand, but right back to the very beginning, enrollment decline is not changing. Enrollment decline in American public schools has been a problem for 20 years. It's not going to change. And if the whole system isn't going to either get organized to do something about it or have something done to it involuntarily, there's this erosion of quality because you can't fund everything because it's not a black hole. There aren't unlimited resources. You have to either make really unpleasant decisions about what's going to be available to our kids or look for ways to protect their interests. And to me, that's what this is. So I'm pretty unapologetic, even though I have empathy for folks in other school systems. I'm doing what we can do for the kids in Alton and Barnstead, and hopefully a whole bunch of fortunate students from other places who want to go.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
At least I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Mr. Broder?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work
We'll be back.
and thinking outside the box. Very much
You're
appreciated.
Thank you. No, it is, it makes it school administration.
Thank you.
This makes it interesting.
Thank you for being interesting.
I had a mentor who had been a superintendent he was a,
Thank you for being different.
Thank you for being different.
I was mentored by a superintendent who was a, it's not, it's not.
Start with the Callan warrant articles. Anybody want to take a break before we get going?
Sure.
Good. Strike for a second.
Yep.
Some water.
Can we take a break, 10 minutes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Bribe.
Right?
I don't,
Yeah. Oh, no, thanks. I'm good, thank you.
Go get the rules changed.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. short time.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as that's 12 months. Yeah.
Candy. Are we back up and running?
Yeah, my wife, she's 4 years younger, so she turned 62. And she's working full-time. You gotta look into, see if she can get some.
We ready?
This here, one ball.
We are, yeah, just turn the volume back up.
It's chilly right here. Get out of here. It's been a long week.
Let's go. Right,
Okay. So just to,
let's get back to business. Warrant articles for the town. Mhm.
So this year, we're talking about operating budget increase. The four full-time fire department personnel, it was voted for last year and were merged into the operating budget this year. Our account for with benefits and salaries account for $424,000. So how do we increase the budget? Is those four positions.
Mhm.
And we will do the best we can to educate that information for the public to know that when those positions were specifically, and they were as an individual article, some may not realize that we have to learn that, and so those four positions are not secured in the default, but so if you go to default, you lose those four. So that's good.
Like permanently?
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we told them the next year, but there was no, so really that's where we're at right now. If you don't get these positions merged into the operating budget, they don't become a default position. And that means that every year, if it's a warrant article, it becomes a yearly funded item. So it's only funded for 1 year. So when they voted those articles, those positions in, it only funded the position through 25. Not
Wouldn't that be, there's not much security then for that person who's hired to fill that
So-
position, which is a disincentive.
with so those people who stood going in, moving secure when they gave me position, or assuming this that it was a yearly funded position and then
Mm.
I will say it. Like positions like that. The other thing is there are two part-time positions, all part-time building inspector, and assistant clerk part-time, to help backfill vacation time, sick time, things like that. And then the assistant building inspector is to help scrub the building, get inspections done. So those two were also a special warrant article, and then merged into the budget as well. Quite significant because they're part-time, they don't have benefit packages and stuff. And the rates of pay, I mean, the hours, I think total, the clerk position, roughly $20,000, and
Plus his mileage.
What's that?
Plus his mileage.
I think that's.
That's with the mileage?
So I wanted to start with that, just to give you that back. Looking at here. Originally with the CIP that was presented to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen went through and they reduced the warrant articles by $752,000. That they had held back on the CIP over to give the tax for some of these items. There are a few CIP items that they chose to fund and move or recommend, I should say. But overall, 700.
And if all of these are passed, what was the item?
What's the rate right now?
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow.
64?
590.
Well, it's gonna be a big jump in taxes. Jump.
Are you basing it on 300?
28%,
Is it?
Before we paid it down.
27.9%.
Jeez.
But that's going off the default budget, right? I mean, the 464.
Yes.
So, I mean, that hasn't increased really.
Yeah.
In,
23.
right, so that's why it looks like a big jump, but, right, but,
28.
right, from 3 years ago.
But the
So,
current rate we pay right now, if it passes, it'll be 27.9%. So,
But-
yes, it's been default, but it's still a
But
big
the
jump.
591 includes the warrant articles, correct?
Yeah.
That's all the warrant articles. Yeah.
62 with all the warning, right? Yeah. So that's 27%.
So before 78.
It was 570?
591.
409.
But because it's set back rate of the year,
Mm-hmm.
we paid it down.
So that's gonna be worse.
Mm-hmm.
And when this finally comes around, it's 591. So the tax bill for the phone, 406.
So that's what it is right there.
The tax rate. We think that's 13, the 1350 or 13. But after the 1.25. No, the actual rate.
Even if you forget the 409 and just do 591 for 64, it's still the same, I think.
13, so we did,
But that's
we
meant-
we brought it down, so the preliminary tax rate that was brought to the board was 14.05 per thousand. They paid it down with the 1.25 million, they brought it down to 30.
27.3%. It's just what it is.
first article is benefit pay capital reserve. And the benefit pay capital reserve, we raised and appropriated some $30,000. Reserve. This capital reserve is that significant retirement current employees who are accumulating benefits. Found out that it's actually crippling. So we started putting money away, at the recommendation of the auditors, so that we weren't crippled with big payouts. So originally, every year, we put 50,000 in, usually recommended at 50,000 from CIP, board of selectmen chose to reduce 30.
Do you have a number that's in that account right now? Thank you. So, 80,000. What has it usually been? Is there like a running, is it like an average? Is it usually 80, 100, 20? I mean, is there like a rough number that's usually in there?
Usually.
Are they ever gonna stop that? That- No, the money that's owed, I mean, in the dreaded private sector, that, any job I've ever had, that doesn't exist. You know, you get 3 weeks' pay, that's it, after 40 years.
Yeah.
Is that just a policy of the town, or?
Yeah. So, only so many. Last time, it used to happen a lot more. We got a lot more. Attrition right now, employees. Unfortunately, you don't quite have that loyalty. Well, different balance.
So 80,
For instance, Holly and Ira announced her retirement January 1. Holly, so, and the other thing, we have lead and, have food taken and stuff like that after 5 or 10 years. The real, and we do have some, we have probably a handful of employees right now that have between 22 and 30 years.
how do they accumulate all that money? Is it just unused vacation time?
So it's usually they can carry over vacation. But the dividend at that time, the bill is just the dividends up to.
So all the stuff just keeps carrying over, carrying over?
But if you hit all the caps out,
What's the cap on vacation time you can carry over?
you don't carry 80 hours a year. You carry over 80 hours, you can say some of those employees get 5 weeks. So say you have 5 weeks and you carry over 2 weeks, and then we end up paying 7 weeks, 7 weeks pay. Usually it's a department, so you got it.
But it isn't capped, like, if somebody's here 30 years and it's not use it or lose it, it's, I can just keep accumulating 80 hours every week for 30 years?
No.
Sorry, 8 hours a year
Yeah.
for 30 years?
You can't carry 80 every year, so it keeps accumulating. You can only carry 80 periods, so you take your vacation plus what's carried over. Well, you can go back to 80. But sick time is 1,040.
1,040 hours? Okay. But sick pay, they can collect what is it? And we have to pay them for that?
Yeah.
1,040 divided by 40?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Years.
So it's 1,040 hours divided by 40 hours. 26 weeks of pay, they can,
This I have here. That's 50%. All these great benefits are still.
private sector, that's for sure.
Well, that's why people work. I mean, that's why we make the choice. We go to the private sector because. Benefits. Really benefit working in health. Benefits in the country. So that's what I did. To me, you compare that 45 years old. The police department. I did it for that reason. If I had stayed in the room, never left, I would have retired at 37. That was the plan. Of course, that got screwed up. Good kids. But I mean. So I don't know, do you have any other questions about that, or if you want to go with that, but basically.
Do you have any questions? Okay. Want to make a motion and recommend it, the budget committee? Or we want to vote whether we want to recommend? All in favor?
We have a first one.
I don't think we need a first and a second. Do we to vote?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion.
So I'll make a motion to for the budget committee to recommend the benefit pay capital reserve trust fund of $30,000.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Greg's opposed?
Yep.
I think that would be nay.
Al?
Nay.
Hal said aye. I mean, yes.
Okay, so 4-1.
It's a nay.
And then. Again, this would be in the corner of the firefighter position, the person. The successful transition from department to this, the 4 positions completes that transition over the course of the last 5 years. Should that fail, the default budget, the 50, so we could cut. It represents roughly a 12.2% increase. The 10,791,000.
Just so you know, our county taxes are gonna go up too, like a whole lot. But that's irrelevant to this.
I have a question on the warrant article.
Which one?
And I don't remember if last year it was in there, but the 7th line down, after it says RSA 40:13, 10 and 16, it says, then there's something that says, Well, it says that the town may hold one special meeting to take up the operating budget. Was that in last year's?
Yeah, it's in. This meeting.
Oh, I know what it means. It means you have it in the summertime when nobody's around, and so it passes. That's just my opinion, that's all.
Yeah.
No. That's what the school used to.
Look at this one. There actually has to be a number, percentage of your overall registered voters. You could spend all that money to notice a meeting if you don't get the attendance over that percentage. Significant enough, you'd have to actually lobby to get. Because if only 41 showed up, if it didn't deliver it, you would wait until all that money set up. Meeting, because it wouldn't, you wouldn't have. Basically,
Quorum.
lack of better term, you wouldn't have quorum.
Right.
So, that is a scary thought in regards to that, because that was something that we contemplated here. And it did us, it cost us more money and go out.
So if all these pass, what will the increase be? $5.91?
That's not the union. So the increase would be from 460.
The 460,
Be $1.27,
$1.20.
$1.27.
28.
per thousand.
The 591
The 91 or 96?
includes all the warrant articles. Right, yeah.
Okay, I thought I heard somebody say 6, okay. So it's 27%. Should I go? Okay. Are we gonna do anything on this one, or?
I'll make a motion to recommend the town operating budget of $10,791,640 and the default budget of $9,795,561.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unopposed?
I'm gonna abstain for now. We're gonna vote on it again, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
$590,653. Again, this is
Users.
funded by the.
Do you know how many end users there are?
I did.
Is it 270 something?
And how much is this,
Is
how
it?
much is it gonna hurt the average end user and what their average bill? Even though, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
No, this. Their rate.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
Event.
we have no control over that as a budget committee. Yeah, okay.
I make a motion that we approve the Waterworks operating budget of $600,916 and the default of $590,653.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
have only allocations recommended, to the board that are $20,000 and under. That's why they were decided a couple of years ago, well, we buy medical because we figured up to 51 more. Yeah. It was become very, like, or especially, they sit there with low lighting. I mean, it's not the best lighting, all those movies, it's all trying to read that.
So why aren't the other two that are 20,000 put into this one? The highway building improvements and the IT. IT capital reserve. Yep.
The board of selectmen reduced the air hearing and then separate one article at the time. But you are right, we committed, Birch Road in public area.
I don't like the idea of them all smushed into one. 'Cause there's some in there that I don't agree with.
I understand it, party,
But that board member voted in favor of it.
Do we know how much is in the, capital reserve fund for each of these? And how much is expended each year? Or was expended to date? Or how much you think will be expended by the end of the calendar year?
most of these, like capital improvement plans, and it tells you the breakdown of what. The beginning purchases that are being spent each year, because basically, they may not have been able to buy this year or next year, but they may be putting 10 or 20,000 away for the 100,000 purchase, or and 80,000 for wow. And like the Miller Wood treatment program, that changes every year, depending on how much treatment in that will go, based on when, or makes it.
Yeah.
Well,
Did the,
the daily, thousand almost in there every year, and then it covers basically repairs and landfill closure, that's been really the permanent thing, since we $17,000 a year to monitor our landfill closure with back because of the contaminants and monitoring. That's a recurring cost that, just comes every year, so we just keep putting in to protect ourselves, and, you know, so far, knock on wood, we've been fortunate enough to have any catastrophic contaminants show up that spreading out. That's something we've always been to do by state law.
did the board reduce any of these numbers, or is this what was originally recommended to them?
This
So,
like the environment, keeping for a problem this year is unfortunate, and it is a problem. The sewer drain tank, alarm system, the department fails, and we had to report, much of the toilet. Water, a hose to the place, what is charged, and all ran in before the units have again. So, okay, it's all of a sudden caught by that tank, or because they alarmed still have to do Russell, which is the. So that was one issue that became possible. We didn't have. We would have to cut stuff that, something in number to do it. So we pretty much drained what was in. There was 20,000 in support to build that back. Not only parking area, senior center, those are projections of the senior center being at 84, working at 10 appropriate. And some other things that, just basic on the life of an asphalt roof and different wear and tear items would be basically date on the old resident home, because really the senior center. Heavy grade commercial or brick or whatever. It's just vinyl siding and asphalt shingles. So they're starting to see more significant repairs and maintenance and upkeep, so that's why they're trying to put that money into town-owned parking areas. Significance in that is we just ran into the issue where we had to service the bay with a lot of asphalt. It was a significant project, upwards of $130,000 to resurface that one parking lot. We didn't have any for that. Kind of recently started this capital reserve, talking small monetary amount, so that we'll get the benefits.
Wasn't that repaved in 2024? It was in 2025.
No.
A couple years ago.
Because we didn't have parking above. And sidewalks, that's a continuous thing for us. We keep picking small sections of sidewalk. Repairing curbing, grade, asphalts. Last big project we did the sidewalk, we did a stamp concrete sidewalk. Bag. Running Chevys and stuff. Those were done, I think, at the same time, right around the same time they paved. Because we reset curves too when we paved. And I know they have some other sidewalks that they're looking at, and we'll have to do some Main Street sidewalks that are some connections the way to get down towards just past the parks and things like that. Narrow really bad, and then a lot of those curves are just barely raised. And then the rock and asphalt crushing, just a way for us to save money on material based on the go with the repairs. They use that one for any portable crusher, and crusher kills housing stockpile. And that's material we take out of our roads, out of our property. And instead of just dumping it out as clean fill somewhere, we take the material that we use for crush. We like asphalt, crush that, we crush rock, aggregate. Up there, and that hay products from a local pit. We're paying a processor to come in all over here, save the equipment.
Oh.
Anybody else have any questions for him?
I'll make a motion to recommend the capital reserve fund appropriations of the sum of $179,500.
Have a second?
Somebody's got to second it so I can vote on it.
Please.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All opposed?
No?
Abstain.
I'd say no.
Yeah, okay.
Abstain.
So we're 3 yes,
One no,
one
Abstention.
no, and one abstain. All right.
Fire department brought two more vehicles forward, which they need to do. One for the fire station down in reserve, and the other one for equipment reserve. The equipment reserve is $500,000. So the board of selectmen had a conversation with the fire chief, what kind of priority. And the equipment reserve, is healthy right now without any pending expenditure this year, so they removed the 500,000 to save, but the 300,000 is important. Limited on fire station, it doesn't have, regarding being needed to be replaced. We did find it, we did get some good news. For the longest time, towns told them threatened that the fire department at the central station had to be taken out. We moved the property, we moved it out, we had some close. And we did recently, we did an engineering study, we hired, Time Bond came in, this Time Bond was working on the DPW building. They were also hired at the same time working on the fire building. And with the planning, we brought engineering this experts, and even at what we're calling flexible PM. Within 3 feet of the banking, the fire station is active. The fire station is high during out of feet flood zones. We have changed our gears with significant savings. There's no local centralized property that's large for the fire station. And for one, it's just pricing out. So this way, we change gears to working towards a engineering or architectural design for an expansion and remodel of the central station. So in a perfect world, global idea is we are moving forward to a new DPW building on Hidden Springs Road on the 60 acres next to the church.
Mhm.
We're gonna open up 12, 15 acres on one side of First Brook. And that's where the DPW site will go eventually, was, till we get a budget passed, go for all this money in the cards. But we're still in planning phase, and that building is up to 2,000. So, we're yeah, at a 5 to 10 year plan, next year, engineer that working toward this, that we'd be taking down the water department, expanding out across so that we can get bay capacity for all the apparatus, and then we can go up above with some expanded living space around that. But that should save us a significant amount of money over a brand new urban station lot. We've written, that's what we were for years. Looking to buy a piece of land for a brand new building, looking at costs between 7 and 12.
How will this, moving the DPW to Hidden Springs Road impact the Cotton Herd Brook Trail and the conservation area there? Yeah, I know where, it,
Down preserve that side, which is over 30 acres. That trail, possibly be like something, we directly outfield. The high school's got field, high school team, but that doesn't count for recreation. Hopefully down today, that won't be moved, or that won't be in. But we did consult with the conservation commission, and their recommended request is to keep 100-foot buffer each side of Burnsworth. Yeah. Because technically the town is required to bid. I mean, that's not fully, but 25 feet, 50 feet. Of the significance of conservation and
It'll be noisy, though, they'll ruin it. Anyway, that's my opinion. So, okay.
How much is in this now? Fire stations?
I'll make a motion to recommend the fire station capital reserve, sum of $300,000.
Have a second?
Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. We're just trying to get
What's
to a
that?
vote.
A second.
Oh, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Come on, Hal, quicker.
I'm gonna be the holdout. Nay.
It doesn't mean, and it doesn't mean this is the final vote either. To the public hearing, we can change it.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, so 4 to
Yes.
1.
yes. Okay, 4-1. Okay. Highway building improvement repairs.
this was reduced to 20,000 after discussion with the DPW director about what could proceed for repairs in that building, and as you know, the DPW building is in the same situation as the fire department. We're living in the lots, they get due, we have a lot of yearly repairs. We have to bill, that was because of some local maintenance issues. Clean the tank out. But out the mineral, whatever it is, it was definitely water. Things would start fresh, but it was a long meeting to catch up on, and some other issues like that that may not have fully. He's been trying to do all of this. So, the board probably reviewed it. Believe me. Everything you allow, so that's within the variance, figure out what.
Cell phones, I know. I didn't move it though. Weird.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. Nay, or nine. However.
She's looking for the aye votes.
Okay.
So you got two,
Aye.
Nay.
you got two,
He said no?
two yes and three no.
Okay. Nope.
Yeah.
As of right now.
All right, bridge replacement.
The old Yankee Bridge with John Lawrence Cove. That bridge solution. Obviously creating some room for inflation and price increase over the next year, $100,000 to get us. Balance right now? 27, 307, well, over the next year, so realistically.
Okay.
Concrete doesn't seem to be.
No,
And
needs labor.
this is a town-owned bridge?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion for 100,000 for this.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Where you're putting money to, because you notice that we've been rebuilding stage at a time. The retaining wall holding back the grass area, to the playground soccer for today. So we, did price out some engineered wall. We started figuring out what the gate solution, engineered solution. Again, school instead, we then rebuild that time, wait for the water level drops low enough. Fortunately, we've been in a drought for a while. That was helpful because we were able to pour new footings and we hit the rocks. Just finished one of the most broken down pieces of one program. Those walls were collapsing. Those been shored back up. They dug out behind it, it was forced it, the focus, rebuilt, put the concrete caps on, and actually put them inside out. Then nice and together. So the stairs that lead down grass area, bridge, ramp. It wasn't fully secured. Some rocks that were placed on the steps. That's all out there for flag concrete. And we won't say that. This is outside of the booby dock area. That's what it's. This block is older. Access to water.
The seniors?
Seniors, yeah, they're the, in the swing area, kitchen, the dock. The relaxing area, makes it difficult to get in, so they were. So this project, more capital reserve has been very helpful in making regular but small dents that repair getting close to, the last stretch we have is from the boat ramp to the end of So, at the tune of a lot less than 3 million. Totally, I can't know the total spend, but I know we're 500,000. We're averaging about, so this year we plan to do 5. So that's our average. Depending on what the weather allows us to get done. And our shoreline service are still good. We have, I think we have 2.
And how much is currently in that? For,
I don't know if we pay anything.
thank you.
We still have almost $40,000 pending invoices that have to pay.
So you've got roughly 100,000 left in it.
146.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to recommend the retaining wall capital reserve fund, sum of $75,000.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Here. What are you supposed to say when you're opposed? What are you supposed to say when you're opposed?
Nay.
Well, what are you supposed to say? It was nay.
So ground and maintenance, CIP recommended $45,000 to go into the equipment capital reserve for the replacement of, vehicles and maintenance equipment. The board would keep its 25,000. Take it 20,000 out. They didn't want to they didn't want to take it out entirely this year. Figured that it might set us back on the maintenance schedule and replacement schedule on vehicles. So they funded it with something that didn't fit.
Is this for new vehicles?
Well, me. Pickup trucks, 1 tons, anything that they have for their vehicles.
But it's not to buy new equipment, it's to maintain it. Maintain what you have.
No, to buy.
It's replacement. This includes the tractors and stuff, the
Yeah.
things that,
You
okay,
have to,
yep. And the equipment that they use at the cemeteries? Okay.
make a motion that we approve the grounds and maintenance vehicle and equipment capital reserve fund at 25,000.
Second.
Can I
All
ask
in
a-
favor?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Do we know what was spent this year up to now?
That's a good question.
I would encourage you to before the public hearing to look at the paperwork, you see the CIP spreadsheet, after giving you a list of every piece of equipment and the replacement schedule, what year that vehicle or that tractor or that lawn air wants to be replaced. Because it gives you, so we go to, think of something, why I think about that.
Right.
We do plow. All that.
Was that handed out at the last meeting? Was that handed out at the last meeting?
In the back.
It's at the back.
My fault. Get that. Yeah. Here, review, about it, something you're gonna report.
I sit and go because it takes all, each department has like 2, 3 pages of equipment and vehicles and, yeah.
Someday when it's snowing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's in there now?
79,000.
79.
That part of the buffers. So one big plow.
I think I already.
Yep,
I
you
already made
did.
a motion.
Now we got to vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No,
Any opposed?
4-1. Greg opposed.
Okay, town hall building improvement. The roof. Oh.
Problem, they're too high, wind, they had no wind cover. So on the weekend, I had all the footage, the shingle being ripped. So we have to send, we actually ended up having to cut. The other day in the daylight, we're gonna look, sky, we're gonna look up. Just to the right of the front door, you'll see there's a shingle patch now. So you're gonna have to go up through the third floor into the attic area and climb out onto the roof because everything lifts. Because I mean, we have to have a 9-foot lift to get. We've replaced all the ledge, flashing already. We painted the ceiling primer twice. I told them to stop doing it, but we can figure out a solution for the roof. So you'll see, there is a warrant article later in here, we put a little roof on the town hall. But it says, it is a,
It's gonna look like shingles though, right?
yes, no, like.
It's gonna look like slate? Nice. Okay. Yep. Okay.
Not yet. Out of the book fund and out of the town hall capital reserve. So this $30,000 for that capital reserve. Well, moral fund. But it's specifically for the babies of the town. So we pull back the rest of it, the balance, and use the capital reserve to replace it. That's our big plan. We just kind of, I mean, you're literally, we flash everything, all the lead flashing.
So the
Good one.
The article at the bottom of the next page, you basically combine that money, if it's approved, and we're about to vote on for the roof, is that?
Yes. Why did you do it that way? Why did the selectmen do it that way? Why did they just, I don't understand.
So.
So it's 100,000 for the roof, and 55 is coming out of the Clough Moral. 45 is coming out of the town hall capital reserve. And is that what this one is, the town hall building improvement capital reserve? Is that what?
Yes, that's what. Because what they didn't not fund any back in time.
How much is in this one now?
I make a motion that we approve the town hall building improvement capital reserve fund.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
The next one is cemetery. Our fund, we're trying to put money away to have an engineer design to do the expansion of the new Riverside Cemetery, but don't have any funding. So they're trying to put money away now, into a capital reserve so we can start building, plans with us. They're all, they're drainage, the new roads, there's, I believe, 3 new roads, the column bearing is being in the back with parking and access. Tonight design is welcome, if any of you want to get it, we do have a copy of all the designs here.
And the new roads are going to be down in the front where that is?
Over.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. 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 Yep.
It's a nice design, it's been written a lot in-house. Using estimation, it just have the extra funding. Get, and the other thing is hoping that with the passage of the spots, what position.
Mhm.
The last year and a half. We just filled them, so we're down 3, but we haven't had a mechanic.
How much is in this fund right now?
How much revenue do we get out of do you know offhand?
I don't. Lots.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we do have is the perpetual care fund, and a lot of people donate money, all put into this perpetual.
Because they have family buried there.
Cemetery budget. Because it's being set now. It doesn't really revenue for it,
Yeah.
but it offsets costs for the taxation. I think the cemetery
Did it?
very.
Yeah. Okay.
So, not to be a bug here, but are we gross budgeting the cemetery or are we net budgeting? Sounds like we're net budgeting. No?
Gross budgeting since I know budgets are being outlined in expenditure. And there are specific tasks or instead of initiatives, specific initiative, like we're gonna do an initiative, do some heating, we're gonna repair one of the fences. Some of that, the air.
Mhm.
So in that sense, we don't budget for it in the year. We budget to take it back and pay it back out. Special care. We bill straight to special care fund, and they approve the funding right from that fund. Doesn't drop over that. Where in other cases, like Greg is saying, if we budget and then when revenue comes in, like we provide a budget for the building department, but all the building permit fees that come in, they come in as revenue, they never offset it.
Right.
Well, it goes to the audit, and they show revenues and that. If that's more than budgeting. The federal airfield is a different animal because it's manned by the specific projects. And it's trustees, it's, and they actually prepare, the whole project.
Yeah.
So it is a gross budget and there's a line item under revenue that shows the money comes in? For the cemetery? No. So, okay. But it's gross budgeting, that's what I'm. All right, sorry, just.
I'll make a motion to recommend the New Riverside Cemetery Capital Reserve Fund of $50,000.
Second.
You second? Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay. Oh, I thought you said I'll second.
No, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Aye, opposed.
One point four five. Same. Say it's left in it, 1.450. Wow. That's what we. Yeah, he is recommended. 1.7. We held it. Do what we can. We doesn't do 1.45. They're making it work. They're charging people, but they're trying to do.
I didn't, honestly, I didn't expect to hear that you spend that much.
Limit?
The asphalt's so expensive.
Yeah, they did our road
Gone
this
through
year,
the
Powder Mill and Old Wolfboro, yeah.
Make a motion that we approve the Highway Reconstruction Capital Reserve Fund of 1.45 million.
I'll s-
No,
second.
whatever, you can have it.
All right, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Honestly, I was going to vote against it until I heard how much you spent on it.
Okay.
They wanted to put some money away for it, but they usually I get like 15,000. You know, and they're concerned with that is making sure that the IT cabinet, we established that one, because we've got about 93 PCs, using tablets or laptops that other department heads are using, things like that. We needed to develop a special workstation that what's great silence. Computer wants, so, that's been
hope they find who did it. Scary, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
So the security stuff is covered in the regular operating budget here. It's, I mean, it's listed 15,525.
You know better.
No, I mean, I'm just, well, I mean, it's just, it's listed here, so if it's what you wanted. Could you- Do we know how much is in there? 72,000?
And how much do you anticipate being spent between now and the end of the year?
Or how much was used last year? Like, is there an average? So it's been up and running for 5 years now, this capital reserve fund, right? I'll make a motion to recommend the IT capital reserve fund of $20,000.
The second? I'll second it so we can vote.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
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 Aye. Oh, nay.
And this police department capital reserve, recently established last year. Then we put $35,000 in. I'll tell you that the reason that this was brought up is one of the main reasons for maintaining it is bought cameras. Cloud storage, you got the equipment, 5 cyber, bought cameras under. We have to take it.
So is that what this is for? I make a motion to approve this then?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So,
Is it on?
5-0.
The more people know, the better. No, I mean, yeah,
Let me ask you, do most police officers support this? Yeah,
good.
because it builds, it really can, they have to be on their best behavior, but it saves a lot of, because they can be accused of all kinds of things. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For that, we couldn't get the fund. There's no thing whatsoever. And the other thing is particularly legal vetting. The biggest problem with body cameras has nothing to do with the footage and the transparency. One of it's the 91A rules.
Yeah.
Because you can request footage of your neighbor. You take off of your neighbor's driveway. You can put them in the station. It's public.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're fine with it. That total legality, because because now they have to view and scrutinize body worn cameras for every single case. And they have to make sure that they redact any juveniles. So you think like a kid.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
HIPAA laws.
So there's a lot to be taken into consideration beyond the fundamental value. The movies today, we said the function is great. It's the administration, probably the first one, I was in administration for a long time, and I from small important.
Yeah. Yeah. Lawsuits. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's also to protect the citizen. What's their policy on turning it on? You know, if they go to have a conference together, like a couple of cops, do they turn them off? Do they mandate it to keep them on all the time?
Station, they would be just. They supervise, right, call, those kind of things. They're not accessible. But as far as being out, like, they're not supposed to be turned on because they open food and each other, and talk to each other for a second, and not really turn it on.
Or if they go to Dunkin', the drive-through and.
Perfect gas, they're gonna do for other things. That's come up already, not here, in this department, but in other. People forget that they haven't gone. We, just on the surface, they come up.
I could imagine.
This stuff. Next one is, State Department Vehicle Penalty Reserve. They're reestablishing, asking to reestablish the vehicle capital reserve. Years ago, we took away the capital reserve, and we've been funding all of our vehicles through the lease program, our police revolving retail fund. And it has been very good for the town. The problem is when I instituted this 10 years ago, cost of the police cruiser was $24,000. You can't purchase the charter. Vehicles that they're purchasing are 54. 100%. Since this program started, and the revolving capital, detail fund can't support it. They can't replace cars fast enough. Can't. That's those charges are coming in why that's why you see this out. And they're trying to spread out. Before we were going to take it through the lead program and keep it using their pressure better training and it's profitable. But with the training, it's taken that whole. Now they're not listening. Battery here to there, and they're hoping to be able to establish this capital reserve plan. I believe they keep things moving, and we'll put more funds in it, because we 40,000 level the outfit. So, just going in 30 to 40,000.
Make a motion to approve Police Department Vehicle Capital Reserve Fund, 40,000.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
So this next one is a new capital reserve that we're trying to establish as well. Going into next year, we have a reval, for 2026. The cost of a reval to the town, we will try to absorb it, modeling budget, but given the increases that we have now and what we're putting in, they can throw them in the approved without telling the town, look, this money is required, by law, we're required to do it. Have to do it, have to find the money for it, so we should start paying it. So now we have 5 years to, so this 126 represents, roughly $100,000 in expenses for 2026. 26 to go into the capital to start our 5-year thing. So we don't have, so we don't pull so much that actually costs.
And it costs 100,000, the reval?
That goes towards the assessor and what, mailings and everything else?
So Walton's only has to assess every 5 years? Ah. At one point, DRA was requiring it every 2 years, a while ago. I know what state statute is. Yeah, I know what state statute is, but I can remember back in, I want to say the 90s, when I was talking to DRA, they said that they were, because Alton was a big fish, they wanted it done more often. I'm like, you guys are crazy. Okay, yep. Yep. Mhm.
It's that 50%. Before it's issued. Yeah. And minus one case.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the town revaluation capital reserve fund of 126,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
New cap. It's a fire department occupation health training, capital reserve. You know, the industry right now is getting toxin from PFAS and a lot of the exploration is causing a lot of the cancer and firefighters for many exposed on a regular basis chemicals. So they are recommending full screenings. We have, pulling one of the plans. Set up regular screenings. So we're trying to set up a capital reserve. That would have 8 full staff. And also was pretty strong. Pretty in the market. On top of that, that we need to establish a small capital.
Was the medical insurance you have doesn't cover this?
So the estimated tax impact of 0 is because it's such a small amount? I make a motion that we approve the 10,000.
Second.
Registered phone, health screening.
Second.
Zero, that's, we're raising money.
Below.
It's
Yeah.
under a penny.
Well,
Yep.
I know, but it isn't zero.
Round up to 1.
Right.
So,
Let's do with the math.
All
I
in
still have a
favor?
whole, I gotta,
Listen,
Listen.
the listener, it was blown up because they were moving. And you could look back, they didn't want to do what was the rule. And now they have people.
There's still plenty of pennies around though. There's plenty, and most of it, if it's writing a check, it's a whole different.
Opposed?
All of these are requests for the, on a regular basis. The only increase is all community services went from 15,000 to 18,000. So the three million, all community services. Stop paying, pay one guy $100. And it's 2021. And contact with new directors, over and over again, they stopped responding to us. They signed the agreement. Instead of putting in the notes, we got to send them a request.
Yep.
Take the money from the 33,000.
3,300.
The difference is when we move from this to 26 grand. I don't know, not necessarily grand, but you gotta remember, we moved from the open to 15. So we, okay, we'll forward.
Yep.
And we want to be, it's a tough situation because I need to go back to cap and don't look at it out. You're pushing, and it's not an agreement, but no one really seen it before either. But like one credit, so we made the board agree that we take the money out of this. Use it by the amount. Talk about things for 2027.
So maybe that's why these should each be a separate warrant article.
I would like to see these separate warrant articles because
Me too.
there are several in here that go to every town, they go to the county, they go to everything. And like Genesis, I'm sorry, but they pay their directors a boatload of money.
At the very least, I would like to see the Alton Community Services separated from all the external nonprofits, because, I mean, we run as a community and as fellow Altonians, the community services, irrespective of our political, viewpoints. And I just, regarding all the others, nonprofits, I personally have a philosophical issue with appropriating funds, extorting funds from taxpayers for nonprofits. If I want to give to a nonprofit,
right,
I
that's
will
the
give to a
notion.
nonprofit, and we do, we're very generous, but I just don't, to me, this is socialism. I'm willing to bend with and help out with community services, Alton Community Services, but not the others for my taxpayers, tax dollar. And here I stand. So, but I will make a motion to approve it so that we can vote on it.
And I'll second.
Okay.
I have a question then.
Yeah, discussion.
I think Hal second, but I have a question about it before we vote. So before the public hearing, or how do we break that apart? Because
Can we?
I agree with,
We can't,
We can't.
so the
Only
selectmen
the
have,
board can.
so the selectmen have to do it, or we could write a petition warrant article, or an individual could write a petition warrant article.
But I will tell you, the petition order.
Mhm.
Already been through. You said that it was warranted. That's why you folks, is what you think, how it's recommended, not right, can't change it.
Okay.
This whole thing with contemplating.
Yeah.
Because it's such a split opinion. I mean, there are a vast majority of people don't want to look at 50, doing more, you know.
It's one day a year.
They should bring their headlamps so they,
But that's their prerogative.
But if we lose this town.
But then they complain about the tax increase and then they don't vote, so.
What's the question?
Yeah. Right. Well, that answers that then. Okay.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yep.
I'll recommend.
On the floor, so on the floor, they bring, so if you could pick up and say, I'd like to amend it, you could say, okay, under, you can't break them out individually, you need the amounts in. So revenue, all community services, it's 50. You could make that motion floor. Second, and approved by the majority, it would change.
can I make a motion that Alton Community Services gets 18,000 and everything else gets 0?
You can.
I mean, I'm just hypothetically.
Or you could,
How could make that motion?
This would be at the deliberative meeting. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Second.
could have a petition warrant.
I'm serious. I'm
Assuming
we're done with all this.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
Yeah.
Because they are.
3 million a year.
Well, and not only the communities, but they also go to the county and ask the county for it again.
Our county taxes, which are gonna go up a ridiculous amount.
That's like double taxation, isn't
Or
it?
even more than this.
Yeah, I know it. 16th one. But these are,
Because it feels, we don't want to feel, we don't want
I
to
don't
be
go to government
homeless
now.
neighbors. I mean,
Just, that would be unethical.
So it's, I mean, it's here, there, and it's.
They do a great job.
Yeah, and they're very mindful of the money that they spend, but it's money well spent because they have had an increase of clientele in the last year and a half. It's, they don't waste it. I can definitely agree, Chris Racine does amazing work. She pinches her pennies quite well. Chris Racine,
And it's,
she's a director.
because it's local, there's more accountability. We have no idea really what these big organizations do.
All
Right.
right. Metal roof, and we're done.
I'll make a motion to approve it on this one because it's desperately needed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
We make a motion that we,
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
We need to approve the minutes for December 3rd. I get a motion to approve. the
Make a
minutes for
motion to
December 3rd,
approve the December 3rd,
2025.
yeah, 2025 minutes.
A second. Favor.
Okay.
Opposed.
I abstain.
Good. Greg was here.
When is our next meeting? Do we?
January 7th is the
January
public
7th.
hearing, with the 14th or the 15th as snow dates.
it's in the minutes right here. Last page. I know, but it's, it's really good.
Okay.
And she puts it in the future meetings.
So we don't have any more meetings before our public hearing? When is the last day?
Is there a school public hearing or something that we're supposed to, any of us are
But
supposed to go to?
it's on the 7th.
It's on this.
When is the last day to submit a petition warrant article?
That's in January,
Right, but
January something.
it's after our public hearing?
Yes. Yes. 25 signatures, yep. And it has to be 25 signatures of currently registered voters.
And this is just, I mean, we're not doing anything secret. We all agree that those nonprofits should be looked at. I mean, we all voted to not recommend them. Someone, as a private citizen, could just come up with a petition warrant article to put the all community services in there for the money that they recommend.
18,000, yep.
Then it would be a separate line item. It would be a separate warrant article. They might get twice the money, but at least they'd get the money. Right? Because when the voters go and they look and they say, gee, the budget committee didn't recommend it, nobody voted for it. Why?
Yeah, but they'll still all vote for it anyway.
Yeah.
Might be surprised if it's that much. I don't know, it's just something. It's just something.
I've been.
It's just something to make sure that they get the money, that's all.
Yeah.
Because I think we all feel that that they should.
But it's important that they do, yes.
And for various reasons, we all voted against that one article. Now, the selectmen can break it out. I mean, they could, and they should.
It is
They could do that before our public hearing.
Our vote would make them move on it, say, hey.
Well, it might, they might say, you know, we should break it out.
article that sounds interesting.
And I'm sure,
Yeah, we did.
and I'm sure that. And I would imagine that the town administrator would be looking into them. Okay, so we'll have a week. If the selectmen don't change the warrant articles, we'll have a week after the public hearing to come up. Somebody in town come up with for the 18,000 article.
It's your idea, you do it.
I will, yeah.
Signatures.
Alternate.
Four.
All right.
We got 5
Yeah.
here.
Motion
just
to
need 20
adjourn.
more.
Too, and I don't feel like we're running around in the middle.
I'll second it.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Here. Thank you, Ryan.
You know how it says,
Thank you,
the
Charles.
budget committee recommends here?
Yeah, yeah.
You know who was responsible for that?
Good for you.
Because I wanted it to be on there. I wanted it to be,
Here I was thinking tonight was gonna